Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're taking a close look at a patent that really caught my eye. It's a totally new approach to data storage security. It was awarded to Lillian Hall Thomas Saby just at the tail end of last year, December 2024. And you know, it's really cool. This episode is actually sponsored by StoneFly, and they're a company that's actually putting this technology to work in their own products. So if you want to learn more about StoneFly, you can head over to stonefly.com or reach out to their sales team at sales@stonefly.com.
You know what really grabs me about this patent is how it tackles this huge growing problem that everyone's dealing with these days, data security. I mean, with ransomware attacks going through the roof and these cyber threats getting so much more sophisticated, protecting data, it's never been more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like every day there's another data breach or another ransomware attack in the news. It's kind of scary. So how does this patent, what's different about its approach to this problem?
Well, it basically lays out this system that uses this concept called air gapping, and you can kind of think of it like creating this isolated, impenetrable vault.
Hmm.
For your most sensitive data, it's like having this separate, secure storage stack that's totally disconnected from your main network. So even if hackers, even if they manage to break into your main system, they wouldn't be able to touch this protected data.
Okay, so it's like something out of Mission Impossible, kind of like a separate data center for all the top secret stuff.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah. And so now the heart of this whole system is this thing called the Secure Storage Stack Protocol, or SSP for short. And you can think of this SSP as like this super sophisticated gatekeeper that's controlling all the access between these two stacks, and, the primary one, and that secure vault we were talking about.
Right, right.
And the SSP, it uses all these different layers of verification. It checks protocols and authentications, even user roles, just to make absolutely sure that only authorized requests are getting through to that protected data.
So it's not just about having a strong password. There's like all these different checkpoints you got to get through. Is that what makes this so much more secure?
Exactly. It's the granularity and the control that the SSP brings. It goes way beyond your typical security measures. It's making sure that even if someone, they get past the first line of defense, they still can't get to that air-gapped data without the right authorization and verification.
Okay, this is starting to make more sense now, and this is where StoneFly comes in, right?
Yeah.
They've actually taken this technology and built it into their products.
Totally. StoneFly really gets the challenges of data security. I mean, they've been leading the way in developing these innovative solutions for a long time now, and they've taken this patented technology and they've built it right into their DR365V and FlexScore Scale HA systems. These systems are specifically designed to protect against ransomware and all these other nasty cyber threats that are out there.
So they're using this air gapping idea to build a real digital fortress around your data.
You got it. And what's really impressive is how StoneFly's made this really complex technology user-friendly. You don't need to be a cybersecurity expert to use and manage these systems.
That's good to hear because I think a lot of people are kind of intimidated by all the tech jargon around data security. It can seem overwhelming.
Yeah.
So can you give us a real world example of how this might actually play out?
Sure. Let's say you're running a small business and your customer database, that's like your lifeblood, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine a ransomware attack hits your network, okay, with a traditional system. Your whole database could be encrypted, held hostage. But if you've got StoneFly's air gap solution in place, all that critical customer data, it's safe and sound, tucked away in that isolated storage stack. The attackers can't touch it.
So even in a worst case scenario, you could still get to your most important data and maybe even keep your business running. That's huge.
Exactly. It really shows you the practical value of this technology. It's not just theoretical protection. It's about giving you real solutions that can protect your business and give you some peace of mind.
Okay, so we've talked about how powerful air gapping is for protecting data. But is it just a physical thing, like separating the hardware, or are there different ways to create that isolation?
That's a great question. And the cool thing about this patent and the way StoneFly's implemented it is that it's flexible. You can do air gapping in several different ways. Like you can physically disconnect the storage devices.
Mhm.
You can use network segmentation to create that logical isolation. Or you can even use cloud-based solutions.
So depending on what you need and what your resources are, you could have an actual separate air-gapped server, or you could set up a virtual air gap, within your existing network or even in the cloud.
Exactly. And StoneFly's got solutions that are designed to work in all these different environments and scenarios. They offer everything from those single-node appliances that are perfect for smaller businesses, all the way up to these really scalable systems that can grow with larger organizations they get, that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to data data security, and they've designed their products to reflect that.
So a small business could have the same level of protection as, one of those giant companies.
That's the idea, and that's a big deal in the world of data security. It used to be that this kind of advanced protection was only for the companies with huge IT budgets, but not anymore.
That's amazing. But I'm also curious about like the day-to-day side of things. We talked about how StoneFly makes things user-friendly, but what does that actually mean for someone who's setting up and managing these systems?
It's all about taking something complex and making it simple. StoneFly's solutions, they've got these intuitive interfaces, really clear documentation, and their customer support is fantastic. They've gotten rid of all the things that can make these systems seem scary, and made it really easy to set things up, manage them, and keep an eye on everything.
So you're saying that even I could handle this.
I have faith in you. StoneFly has made usability a priority without sacrificing any of the functionality, and that's a big part of making this level of security truly accessible to everyone.
It sounds like they've really thought of everything from the technology itself to making sure that people can actually use it. This has really changed how I think about air gapping and data security in general.
It really shows how committed they are to not just developing cutting-edge solutions, but also making sure that their customers can actually use them to protect their data.
Well, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about the future of data security after learning about all this. But before we get too carried away, I think it's time to dig into some real-world examples. How this technology is actually being used and how StoneFly is making it something that businesses of all sizes can use. But first, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor, StoneFly. So be sure to check out StoneFly.com or get in touch with their sales team at sales@stonefly.com to find out more about their incredible data security solutions. We'll be back right after this. Okay, we're back, and I'm ready to get into some real-world examples of this air gapping technology. I mean, it's one thing to talk about concepts and diagrams, but seeing how it all works, in practice, that's what really makes it click.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we've got a hospital, right? They've got tons of sensitive patient data, and they get hit with a ransomware attack. Their systems are locked down as total chaos.
Oh man, that's a nightmare. So what happens to all that patient data in that situation?
Well, that's where air gapping really shines. If the hospital had something like StoneFly's DR365V system in place, all those critical patient records would be totally safe, tucked away in that isolated storage stack.
So even in the middle of a cyber attack, they could still access all that vital patient information.
Yeah,
I mean, that could literally save lives.
exactly. And this isn't just about healthcare. Think about financial institutions, government agencies, research labs, any organization that's got really sensitive data, they can all benefit hugely from this kind of protection.
Yeah, you're right. It's like having that digital fortress we were talking about before, protecting all that information no matter what happens. But what about smaller businesses or organizations? The ones that don't have a ton of resources. Can they actually afford to implement this kind of security?
That's a really common misconception. People think that air gapping is this high-end solution that's only for the big guys, but StoneFly's actually made it surprisingly affordable.
Oh, that's awesome. So how have they made this technology more accessible, to a wider range of users?
Well, one way is through their product range. They offer solutions for all kinds of needs and budgets. They've got these single-node appliances that are perfect for smaller businesses, and then they have these scalable systems that can grow along with bigger organizations. They understand that not everyone needs the same thing when it comes to data security, so they've designed their products to reflect that.
So like a small mom and pop shop
Hmm.
could potentially have the same level of protection as, a giant corporation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big deal. It levels the playing field when it comes to data security. It's not just for the companies with the big budgets anymore.
That's really impressive. But I'm also curious about the practical side of things. We've talked about how StoneFly makes things user-friendly, but what does that actually look like for someone who's setting up and managing these systems?
It's all about making things simple. Even when the technology itself is complicated, StoneFly's solutions have these really intuitive interfaces. The documentation is clear, and their customer support is amazing. They've really gone out of their way to make sure that these systems aren't intimidating. It's easy to set them up, manage them, and keep an eye on how they're doing.
So you're telling me that even I could figure this out?
Absolutely. They've made usability a top priority, without sacrificing any of the functionality, and that's a key part of making this level of security accessible to everyone.
It sounds like they've really thought of everything, from the technology itself to making sure that people can actually use it. This has really changed how I think about air gapping and data security in general. Yeah.
It just shows how committed they are to not just developing cutting-edge solutions, but also making sure that their customers can actually use them to protect their data.
Well, I'm feeling a lot more confident about the future of data security after learning about all this.
Yeah.
But I do have one more question. We've been focusing on how this technology protects against threats like ransomware, but does it do anything else, beyond that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, well, ransomware protection is a big advantage. Their gapping has other benefits, too. Think about accidental deletions, internal threats, even natural disasters that could damage your main systems.
So it's not just about external threats, it's about protecting your data from anything that could go wrong, whether it's on purpose or by accident.
Exactly. It's about building a data infrastructure that's truly resilient. One that can handle anything that comes its way.
This really shows how holistic StoneFly's approach to data security is. They've thought about everything, not just the obvious threats.
That's a great point. It's about being proactive and taking a comprehensive approach. Addressing all the potential risks, not just reacting to the ones that have already happened.
Well, I have to say, this has been a really insightful discussion. We've gone from talking about air gapping in general to understanding all the details and how StoneFly has made this technology so practical and accessible for all kinds of users.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and I'm glad we could really dive into the real-world implications and benefits of this approach to data security.
Me too. And I think the biggest takeaway for our listeners is that data security is everyone's responsibility. It's not just an IT issue. It's something that everyone in an organization needs to be aware of.
I totally agree. It's about being proactive, staying informed, and working with companies like StoneFly, companies that are dedicated to helping businesses navigate the world of data security.
Well said. So with that in mind, I want to thank our listeners for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, if you're looking for innovative and reliable data security solutions, be sure to visit stonefly.com or contact their sales team at sales@stonefly.com.
They've got a ton of resources and expertise to help you protect your most valuable asset, your data.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure. Okay, so we've really gotten into the nuts and bolts of this patent and how StoneFly has actually turned it into, real solutions. But now I'm thinking about, the big picture. Where does this all fit in with data security as a whole? And, what's coming next? What does the future look like?
That's a great question. And the thing is, data security, it's not a one and done kind of deal. It's always changing. The threats are constantly evolving. New technologies are coming out. So while air gapping is this really powerful tool, it's not like a magic bullet. It's not going to solve everything.
So it's more about understanding, the whole situation and adapting to new challenges as they come up.
Exactly. Think of it like, a defense system with multiple layers. Air gapping is a crucial layer for sure, but it needs to be part of a bigger strategy. You need things like strong firewalls, intrusion detection systems, encryption protocols all working together.
Right. So it's not just about one technology. It's about having a whole strategy, and I guess human behavior and how organizations do things play a big part in that too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can have the most sophisticated technology in the world, but if someone makes a mistake or there's a vulnerability, in how people are doing things, it can still create a risk. That's why things like employee training, good password policies, and regular security checks are so important.
So it's like technology, human awareness, and organizational policies all working together to create a system that's really strong.
You got it. And what's really cool is that StoneFly, they get this, they understand that it's all connected. They don't just sell technology. They actually help businesses, develop and implement these whole data security strategies.
That's a really good point. Yeah. It's not just about buying a product. It's about finding a partner that understands the whole picture and can help you build a strong security system.
Exactly. And that's where StoneFly's expertise is so valuable. I mean, they've been in this business for a long time. They've seen how threats have changed. They get the challenges that businesses are facing, and they're always coming up with new ways to stay ahead of the game.
So looking ahead, what do you think are the big trends or technologies that are going to shape data security in the future? What's on the horizon?
Well, artificial intelligence and machine learning, they're already playing a huge role in detecting and responding to threats. We're seeing these systems that can analyze tons of data and find patterns or anomalies that might mean an attack is happening.
So it's like having this digital detective that's always watching your network, looking for anything suspicious.
That's a great way to put it. And as AI gets even smarter, we're going to see systems that can predict and stop threats before they even happen.
That sounds pretty futuristic, but I mean, technology moves so fast these days, it might not be that far off. And what about blockchain? Do you think that has a role to play in data security?
For sure, blockchain is decentralized, and you can't change it once something's on there. So it's got huge potential for making data more secure and trustworthy. We're already seeing it used for things like secure data storage, managing identities, and supply chain security.
So blockchain is more than just about cryptocurrency. Now it's becoming part of how we protect our data in all sorts of ways.
Yep. And companies like StoneFly are leading the way in taking these new technologies and turning them into solutions that businesses can actually use.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. We started by looking at this one patent, and now we're talking about the future of data security. And it's clear that this is a field that's always moving forward and coming up with new ideas.
It's definitely an exciting time to be working in data security. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too. And I think the main thing for our listeners to remember is that data security is everyone's job. It's not just an IT problem. It's something that every organization needs to make a priority.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, staying informed, and working with companies like StoneFly that are dedicated to helping businesses navigate the world of data security. It can be a complicated world, but with the right partners and the right approach, you can keep your data safe.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank our listeners for joining us on this deep dive. And don't forget, if you're looking for data security solutions that are innovative and that you can rely on, check out stonefly.com or get in touch with their sales team at sales@stonefly.com.
They've got everything you need to protect your most important asset, your data.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.